you're all here to see talks about Gen Z, our progressive ideologies, and pragmatic worldviews. So I thought it only makes sense to start this event by questioning the progress and achievements that our generation has made. As advertised, Gen Z is the first generation with such in depth access to resources and information online. We have grown to become very outspoken and concerned about the world around us, and have seen an exponential rise in social media activism. This has led to words like keyboard warrior being coined, which refers to a person who campaigns aggressively online but does not behave similarly in real life. Most of us have seen examples of this, where people are regularly posting infographics on their stories only to forget what they were talking about when the hashtag stops trending. So, with an understanding of this, it led me to the question: Gen Z, are we keyboard warriors or change makers? All the time, we hear things like about the immense potential of Gen Z and all the progress we've made, and more platitudes from world leaders to make us feel better about the situation that we're in. What do the numbers say about this? Firstly, I'm sure we can all agree climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time. A study found that 67% of Gen Z respondents concurred with this. However, only 32% of these respondents had taken concrete action in their daily lives to combat climate change. However, interestingly, 67% of respondents had posted at least once about climate change on their social media. Similarly, our generation has brought attention to the problem of textile waste. A survey found that 63% of Gen Z respondents were concerned about social and environmental implications of fast fashion. However, the same study found that 62% of us shop at a fast fashion retailer monthly, and only 10% of us have never shopped at a fast fashion retailer. And lastly, our generation has brought great attention to the issues of bullying and improving our mental health. However, in the last few years, rates of cyberbullying have increased from 34.6% to 45.5%. All this indicates that people believe that acting on social media, which is just a tool in aiding social change, is the same as accomplishing the ends, or is the same as actually accomplishing the goal of causing social change. Another example of this is in 2020, the Black Lives Matter movement. Everyone was posting black squares on their feed, but how many of us still have them up? Societal issues stop mattering as much when they start interfering with our aesthetics, right? Projected here is a screenshot from Emma Watson's Instagram page, where she posted a black square on Blackout Tuesday. I found it ironic that the black squares had a white border around them to match the aesthetic of her feed. The Black Lives Matter hashtag, originally being posted along with a black square, originally started as a means to propagate links to helpful sites with fundraisers and financial aid, and had become a great tool for members of the Black community. However, in 2020, in one of the most blatant acts of performative activism, supposed allies of the movement inundated the hashtag with black pictures and no captions with helpful links. This saturated the hashtag and made it difficult to find the helpful links that people had spent years accumulating. However, all this being said, I still do believe that this issue is representative of the opportunity that lies in social media. Social media can be used as an effective tool only if we act with intent and a full understanding of the topic that we're aiming to raise awareness towards. Another facet of this is climate change. On the climate activism side of social media, a while ago, social media users were claiming that 100 corporations are responsible for 70% of all global emissions. Users were quick to support this claim and use it to blame corporations before doing the research to find that 100 corporations are responsible for 71% of all industrial pollution. The sum of all industrial pollution actually only accounts for 12% of net global emissions. This should indicate to us, as research shows that households are the major polluters. We account for 72% of all pollution. The consumption of these goods and services is vastly more damaging than the production processes themselves. This should indicate to all of us that as consumers, it is our responsibility to act ethically and to vote with our wallets, because we cannot shirk responsibility and put the blame on these producers and these firms, as we are the ones funding them. However, all this being said, I must agree that researching about social change and researching about the problems that plague our times can be a very daunting process. With the overwhelming number of problems that we see around us on a daily basis, it can lead to feelings of helplessness and anxiety. And research has shown that an increased awareness of the problems around us has led to increased levels of anxiety all throughout Gen Z. But I must state that taking an action, however small, may not turn the tides against climate change with 37.5 billion tons of emissions yearly, but you, as an individual, can improve your own well-being if you take some changes. Not everyone can be a Greta Thunberg, but at least you have the scope of improving your own well-being. Speaking of Greta Thunberg, not many people know, but she was also a victim of this very phenomenon of hopelessness. When she learned about the climate crisis that we were facing, her parents reported that she was slowly disappearing into some kind of darkness. She stopped playing the piano, stopped talking, stopped eating, and more. But soon, she started what we all know today as the Fridays for Future strikes. Initially, it was just her and a few of her friends who attended these strikes. But soon after, as her efforts compounded and grew to have the worldwide influence we know it to have today, her parents reported that from the very beginning, as she started making these efforts, her own well-being, her mental health had immediately started improving. So Greta Thunberg is representative of the opportunity that lies within all of us to at least improve our own well-being and to become more confident in doing our part for the world around us. So this leads me to the problem statement. How can we involve ourselves? How can we make a greater positive change? So any change maker can follow these three aspects that need to combine. Firstly, we need to involve. Gen Z's involvement in the public sector as citizens needs to increase. We need to become a part of the decision-making process that is determining our futures. As not all of us can vote yet, it is important that we find alternatives and alternative means to involve ourselves. Secondly, we need to capitalize. As has been said before, we have an acute understanding of the world around us. We need to capitalize on the immense number of resources that are available to us. And lastly, we need to compound. We need to understand the value of compounding. An issue, however large, can be solved by small steps taken over a period of time. Now, my time here would be fruitless if I didn't leave all of you with some methods and some means in which to apply yourselves to the world around you. So, firstly, I'm well aware of how difficult it may be to start an NGO, but if you see an issue around you, if you see something that you may have a means of solving, I encourage you to just start a local project. Once you've started your local project, you can register to become a government-certified NGO using the online portal of whichever state you live in. This will allow you to do crowdfunding. Donations will become tax-exempt, which will encourage donors to contribute more. And alternatively, if this is not possible for you, you can apply to existing NGOs and you can apply to open new branches of their tried and tested method. This will add credibility to your work and it will ensure that you see the results. As I've said, it's a tried and tested method. Secondly, we can file petitions for policy change or the introduction of new infrastructure. Filing petitions can be done online in most countries, and it must be in the format of public interest litigation where the issue that you're campaigning for must be one that affects multiple people. For example, pollution in the city or prejudice against women. Processing time for petitions are usually 4 to 6 weeks and can be done, as I said, online in most countries. And lastly, as I've spoken about before, is the propagation of opinions on social media without a deep understanding of what's actually happening. So, many of us here are passionate about certain issues, so researching them and writing articles for them, getting them published in nationwide newspapers, school newspapers, or even starting a social media account within your school to regularly update your classmates, your peers, your friends, your family about contemporary issues can make all the change in a person's understanding. It can allow people to develop educated opinions instead of taking what is mass fed to them and standing for or against the issue. An example of a person who has used all three of these fields to make a positive change on the people around him is William Kamkwamba. William lived in a small village in Mali with little to no access to electricity. And noticing this, he used his high school physics textbook to build a small windmill to power one light bulb in his room. Soon, his efforts compounded, and he built 3 windmills that now power his entire village. Anybody can notice a problem around them. Anybody can have the knowledge of physics that he had. And anybody can make an effort. But only change makers would build on all 3 pillars together. Now, it is in your hands. Will you be a change maker or will you be a keyboard warrior? Thank you.